I never expected to find love in the most unlikely place. My journey began as a single mom. I will never forget the day everything fell apart. My fingers, trembling with fear, gripped the edges of the table, as echoes of my son's laughter faded into distant memories. The walls closed in, and the weight of silence was suffocating. Each heartbeat felt like a countdown, a reminder that life was shifting beneath my feet. The phone rang, shattering my fragile moment. It was a call that would turn my world upside down. I sat there, heart racing, listening to the voice on the other end speak words that felt like daggers. "We need to talk about your financial situation." My breath caught in my throat. A single tear escaped, blurring my vision. I had been balancing motherhood and work for years, but it felt like I was teetering on the edge of a cliff, ready to fall at any moment. Life had already dealt me so many blows. My daughter, sweet and bright, whispered her dreams of becoming an artist, but those dreams felt heavy on my shoulders. Could I nurture her passions when my own were wilting? My ex-husband, a shadow of what once was, faded from our lives, leaving a hollow space I couldn't fill with dreams. My love life, if it could even be called that, was dormant. I was hurt, afraid to open my heart again. But when I stepped outside, the universe, in its funny way, revealed a chance. A peculiar bookstore appeared overnight on my street, a place that looked like it had been tucked away in a forgotten dream. The sign creaked gently in the wind, and curiosity tugged at me. I felt the urge to step inside, as if it were calling my name. The moment the door swung open, I felt a rush of warmth. The fragrant scent of coffee and old pages enveloped me. Rows of books towered high, each one whispering stories of its own, and I could hear the soft rustle of pages turning in the hushed atmosphere. I noticed a figure near the back, a man with deep-set eyes and an unkempt beard. He seemed lost in thought, surrounded by towers of fiction. It was strange and exciting. My heart raced more than it had in years as I browsed the shelves. His gaze caught mine. There was an electric connection, something raw and powerful. It felt like I was stepping into a different world, one filled with promise and possibility. My pulse quickened, as if the entire room had transformed into a stage where the drama of my life would take a new turn. But just then, my son's voice broke through the spell, calling me back to reality. I turned and rushed back home, heart pounding with questions. What if this man held the key to something more? What if he was a piece of the puzzle I needed in my chaotic life? Or was it just an alluring mirage, a distraction from the storm that loomed over my head? Now I stand at a crossroads, caught between hope and fear, desire and uncertainty. The mystery of that man lingers in the air like a sweet perfume. I can't shake the feeling that my life is about to change. And not all changes are easy. Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. The next morning arrived with a bittersweet sunlight that spilled through my window like liquid gold, illuminating the chaos that had become my home. Toys scattered across the living room floor, remnants of yesterday's laughter now shadowed by the shadows of worry creeping into my mind. I brewed a pot of coffee, each drip echoing the exhaustion in my bones, and prepared to face the day. As I glanced at the calendar, my heart sank. Another bill due, another reminder of how close I was to running on empty. I pulled my phone from my pocket, wavering between the temptation to call the bookstore and the reality of my situation. What was I thinking? I was a single mother with responsibilities, not a whimsical dreamer. But the thought of the man from the bookstore, the way his eyes had sparkled with an unspoken understanding, stirred something deep within me. A flicker of hope that I rarely allowed myself to entertain. Taking a deep breath, I decided to take the leap. After dropping my son off at school, I found myself standing outside the bookstore again, feeling as if I were staring at a portal to a different world. My heart raced. I stepped inside, the familiar warmth wrapping around me like a comforting blanket. The smell of coffee and books felt like home, even if just for a moment. But the moment of solace was short-lived. As I made my way to the back, I noticed a commotion near the register. The man with the deep-set eyes was engaged in an animated discussion with another customer. I couldn't hear their words, but I could feel the tension in the air. It was palpable. My stomach tightened with apprehension. What if he was just another mirage? Another fleeting moment that would slip through my fingers at the first sign of trouble. Before I could backtrack, he turned, and our eyes locked. In that instant, the chaos around us faded. I could see the kindness in his gaze, but also something else, a vulnerability that mirrored my own. As the other customer left with a huff, he approached me, a hesitant smile breaking through the gravity of the moment. "Did you find anything interesting?" he asked, his voice warm, like a soothing balm. Not yet," I stammered, feeling the weight of my words. What did I say? Did I even belong here? "Let me show you something," he said, leading me to a secluded corner where a few armchairs waited, inviting and worn. "This is where I come to escape. It's not just a bookstore. It's a refuge." A guard melted in my chest, and I nodded, allowing myself to sink into one of the chairs. We talked about our favorite authors, our pasts woven with laughter and a touch of sadness. He revealed snippets of his life, how he had lost a family member recently, and how the books reminded him to cherish every fleeting moment, even in sorrow. It struck a chord within me, and I opened up about my struggles, feeling safe in the cocoon of his understanding. And then, as if the universe had conspired to challenge us further, my phone rang again, jolting me back to reality. It was the school. My heart raced as I answered, only to hear the voice of the principal telling me that my son had a fever and needed to be picked up. The warmth I had shared with the man vanished in a heartbeat, the weight of parental responsibility crashing down like a wave. "I am so sorry," I said, guilt flooding my voice. "I have to go. I understand. We can talk more later?" He said softly, almost pleadingly, his eyes searching mine for a sign. "Yeah, of course," I replied, as disappointment crept in. But reality called first. The drive to the school was a blur, my mind racing with thoughts of how easily hope can turn to uncertainty. When I arrived, I found my son crumpled on a bench, his small body defeated by fever. I scooped him up, clutching him tightly against my chest, feeling the weight of his illness rest heavily upon my heart. Once home, I tucked him into bed and sat beside him, watching the rise and fall of his chest in a steady rhythm. He looked up at me, his eyes heavy with fatigue. "Mom, is everything going to be okay?" My heart twisted at the vulnerability in his voice. "Of course, my love. We'll get through this together. We always do." But even as I said the words, a part of me felt hollow, the familiar fear gnawing at the edges of my resolve. Later that night, with my son peacefully sleeping, I plucked up the courage to text the man from the bookstore, wanting to spill the thoughts that had been spinning in my mind since we'd met. "Can we talk tomorrow?" I typed, my fingers trembling as I pressed send. To my surprise, a reply came quickly. "Absolutely. I'd love to see you again. How about lunch?" Hope flickered for an instant, but was swiftly overshadowed by the chaos of my life. Just as I began to respond, I received another notification. A message from my ex, demanding financial support out of nowhere. My heart sank. I felt chains clamping tighter around my dreams. As I lay in bed, the weight of my circumstances bore down heavily. Was I allowed to feel hopeful? Did I have room for love? Just as doubt seeped in, I heard my phone vibrate again. It was a new message from the man at the bookstore, an image of a book, the title glowing brightly, "Finding Hope in the Midst of Chaos." It felt like a fleeting promise that teased out flickers of light intertwined with the complexities of my life. But instead of solace, it left me with unease. What if this journey was just beginning, and far more challenging than I imagined? Would I be strong enough to navigate this tumultuous path? With my heart racing, I turned off the light and lay awake, consumed by uncertainty, the shadows whispering secrets of tomorrow. The next morning dawned with a chill that seeped through the walls of my home, snaking its way around my heart, reminding me of all that felt fragile. My son's fever had broken in the night, but my spirit remained encased in ice, fear gripping me tightly as I tried to balance the responsibilities of motherhood with the flickering hope ignited by the man from the bookstore. As I sat at the kitchen table, nursing a cup of coffee that had grown cold, the calendar loomed again, a stark reminder of my financial strain that echoed every beat of my heart. Each day felt like a countdown, each unopened bill a weight pressing down with relentless pressure. I gripped the mug tightly, my knuckles white as I fought against the wave of anxiety threatening to engulf me. My phone buzzed, breaking the silence. A notification from the principal's office about a fundraiser. It was nothing more than routine information, but the underlying message felt like a punch to my gut. The school was in need just like me. I was reminded how easy it was for others to share their burdens, while my own seemed insurmountable. I closed my eyes, wishing for an escape, when suddenly I was jolted back to the moment, remembering the warmth of the bookstore, the gentle way he had spoken to me, how he had made me feel seen and understood. With trembling hands, I typed a short message to him, a reminder to myself that I could connect with someone outside the confines of my struggles. Lunch sounds great. How about noon? I pressed send, each word heavy with hope and fear. As the clock ticked closer to noon, anxiety twisted in my stomach. What would I say? Did I even deserve this moment? I glanced at the mirror, taking in my reflection. It was tired, but there were small flickers in my eyes I hadn't noticed before. Strength, perhaps, or glimpses of the woman I used to be before life tangled my fate so brutally. I arrived at the bookstore, the familiar warmth wrapping around me like a soft embrace. He was already there, leaning against the shelves, a book cradled in his hands. His smile when he saw me sent a rush of butterflies through my belly. "You made it," he said, his eyes lighting up, and suddenly all the weight on my shoulders felt a little lighter. We found a small table in the corner, and over steaming plates of pasta, our conversation flowed effortlessly. He shared stories of childhood adventures, the way he had fallen in love with literature, and how each story had been a stepping stone through his grief. With every shared laugh, I felt the barricades I had built around my heart start to crumble. "Tell me about you," he prompted, a genuine curiosity gleaming in his eyes. For a moment, I hesitated. How could I condense my life into words that wouldn't reveal just how difficult everything had become? But just the warmth of his presence coaxed me into honesty, and I found myself sharing snippets of my life, the laughter of my son, the shadows of my past, and the burdens that weighed me down. It felt liberating, almost as if I were shedding layers of a skin that had become too tight. "I admire your strength," he said softly, his gaze penetrating. "Takes a lot to continue forward when the world tries to keep you down." His words settled somewhere deep inside me, igniting a small flame of self-acceptance that I had long buried. But just as I began to feel buoyed by this connection, the moment was shattered. My phone buzzed again, this time a message from my ex, the same pleading demands I had tried so hard to move past. My heart sank, every line a reminder of my reality, and I felt the tension return like a cruel tidal wave. "I am sorry," I said, my voice barely above a whisper as I read the message in front of him. "I really have to do something about this." His expression softened in understanding. "Family can be complicated," he said, gesturing lightly to my phone. "But it doesn't define you. You can still take steps towards your dreams." The words washed over me, and a thought bloomed. Could I truly carve a path towards my aspirations without losing myself in the process? A sense of determination flickered at the edge of my mind, but it was quickly extinguished by the looming reality of my situation. Doubt crept in again, like an uninvited guest at my celebration. We resumed our conversation, but I felt the shadow of my burdens lurking in the corners of my mind, tainting the light that came from our connection. The remainder of our lunch danced along the edges of joy and sadness, like the chaos outside the bookstore, a world where I was learning to navigate hope and struggle together. As we wrapped up, he reached out, brushing his fingers against mine as he stood. "I'd love to see you again. There's this poetry reading next week. Maybe we could go together?" My heart raced at the offer, all the beautiful possibilities unfurling in my mind. But a surge of panic overwhelmed me. How could I allow myself to step into something beautiful when chaos awaited me at home? I could feel my defenses rising, but before I could respond, another familiar vibration came, and I glanced at my phone, my stomach dropping. The message was from my landlord, a polite yet firm reminder about overdue rent. The walls felt like they were closing in on me, pressing my fears and worries into the pit of my stomach. My breath hitched as I turned to him, feeling the warmth of our connection slipping away, uncertainty swallowing my voice. I don't know if I can make it, I finally admitted, the words trembling as they escaped my lips. He studied me for a moment, his expression a mix of understanding and concern. You deserve to let go even for a little while. We all do. That simple phrase, something so full of promise, sent waves of conflict crashing against my heart. Yet, before I could respond, my phone buzzed again. It was another message, an unknown number, but the words sent a chill up my spine. You must pay what you owe, or else things will get worse. Everything felt suddenly heavy, the weight of the world pressing so tightly against my chest I could hardly breathe. The flicker of hope I had felt vanished, leaving a hollow echo behind. Would I ever be able to let love in when every step forward sent me hurtling back into despair? I didn't know how to answer him, uncertainty tangling my thoughts like a web. And just as I glanced back up at him, my heart caught in the tumult of my emotions, I noticed a glimmer of desperation in his eyes, mirroring the turmoil swirling within me. Please, tell me you'll consider it, he urged gently, and I could see the worry creeping into his expression, the desperation for some connection starting to flicker away. Yeah, I'll think about it, I finally said, but as those words slipped past my lips, dread coiled tightly around my heart, and I knew that I was standing on the precipice of something much more significant than I had anticipated. With my voice uncertain and my thoughts a storm, I felt the weight of that moment as we walked out into the world outside the bookstore. Would I step forward into love, or would the harsh truths of my reality pull me back? As I turned to say goodbye, an unexpected epiphany struck me, leaving an unsettling sense of foreboding hanging in the air. My journey, both beautiful and tragic, was just beginning to unravel. The days faded into a blur as reality gnawed at the edges of my newfound connection with him. Each morning, I woke to a series of shadows lurking just beyond the light of hope I had ignited. The bills piled higher, and the messages from my ex became more strident, drumming a relentless rhythm of anxiety that drowned out any whisper of peace. Yet, despite the growing noise in my life, I felt an unexpected urge to reach out to him again. The bookstore loomed like a sanctuary from the chaos. I had returned there every afternoon, craving that warmth, that familiarity, even when he wasn't there. It was as if the books themselves were speaking to me, each spine a silent companion echoing stories of resilience. But today I felt a different sort of urgency to weave his presence into the fabric of my daily life. I sent him a simple message, requesting to meet again. Can we do dinner this week? Need to talk. It was vague, but I hoped he could read between the lines, that perhaps he understood that the threads of my life were fraying at the seams. He responded almost immediately, of course. How about Friday? I know a great little place. His enthusiasm wrapped around me like a warm blanket against the chill creeping in from the world outside. But as Friday approached, the panic I tried so hard to stifle erupted. In the span of a few days, my situation had worsened. The eviction notice had arrived sooner than I expected, its harsh proclamation plastered on the paper like a final judgment. My heart raced at the thought of where I would go, how I could possibly uproot my son again. The bakery that always had a friendly smile felt heavy with the weight of my troubles, and every stranger's gaze seemed to linger a moment too long, filled with judgment as Friday rolled around. I tried desperately to muster the courage to share my truth with him. I picked an outfit that reminded me of who I was before the burdens. I wanted to feel lighter, as if shedding the layers of anxiety would somehow make it easier to breathe. The thought of keeping my struggles from him felt insurmountable. Did I even truly deserve the kindness he extended? Dinner unfolded like a dream. Laughter spilled over plates of pasta, conversations flowed like river currents, and for a brief moment, the edges of my worries softened. Yet, each laugh felt strangely hollow, as if I were living a borrowed joy, a precious thing that belonged to someone else. "Tell me your dream," he encouraged as we shared a dessert, a hesitation lingering between us. His eyes sparkled with genuine curiosity, and that flicker of warmth ignited something deep inside me. "My dream?" I echoed, the question hanging in the air, weighted with significance. Did I even have a dream anymore? The answer danced on my tongue, yet fear silenced it. So instead, I spoke of small things. I wove girlish ambitions into practical hopes, finding a steady job, saving for a better apartment, providing a vibrant life for my son. But as I spoke, I could feel the truth clawing at my throat. "Those are a start," he said gently, his tone sincere. "But you deserve more too. What do you want for yourself beyond those responsibilities?" The question narrowed the air around me, pooling anxieties until I felt suffocated. I wasn't ready for an exploration into my dreams. I was still grappling with the weight of reality. But I couldn't ignore the glimmer of something swaying within that scared part of me. Just as I was about to dwell deeper into a fear-soaked silence, I received another notification, and my heart sank. It was another text from my landlord, this time terse and devoid of empathy. "If you do not pay by the end of the month, you will have to leave. No exceptions." My pulse quickened, and a silence fell like a shroud around us. I could feel the warmth of the candles flickering in between, the laughter we just shared a mere echo of the truth shattering around me. The color drained from my face, and suddenly, I felt transparent, as if the heaviness of my life was carved into lines etched across my skin, revealing everything I had tried to hide. "I have to go," I whispered, my voice strained as I fumbled for my purse. "There's something I need to do." "Wait," he called out, confusion threading his features. What just happened? I could feel the corners of my mind trying to resist the growing panic. I could see the concern in his eyes and the genuine sweetness of his spirit. And in that moment, merging pain and longing, I found myself torn. "I can't," I blurted, shaking my head reflexively. "You don't understand." "Then help me understand," he implored gently, reaching for my trembling hands. "We can do this together." Before I could respond with a confession, the tears overflowed, spilling down my cheeks unbidden. The last vestiges of control slipped from my grip, and as I looked into his trusting eyes, something crucial clicked within me. But just then, my phone buzzed, a flurry of unwelcome messages rising up. It was my ex, his words like a volatile chemical reaction against my wounded heart, threatening to consume everything I had begun to rebuild. The chain of responsibilities clamored louder in my head, drowning out the love I was beginning to accept. I stammered, pulling my hands away, feeling the warmth of his touch evaporate as the choices began to suffocate me again. "I need to go." I raced out of the restaurant, the integrity of my last shred of hope collapsing behind me. The cool night air smacked me across the face, sharp and unyielding. But as I stood outside, the weight of everything collided within me. Retreating into chaos was easier than accepting the gentleness he offered, and as I leaned against the cold brick wall of the building, I felt my resolve start to crack through the haze of my panic. I caught a glimpse of him moments later, stepping out into the night, concerned eyes searching for me. In that moment, something shifted within me, a fragment of determination piercing through the fear. Just when I feared hope might escape me once more, I held on to the visceral urge to believe that perhaps, just perhaps, I could meld the complexities of my struggles into a symphony of life instead of allowing them to drown me. I took a deep breath, prepared to turn back and face him. But before I could take a step, the screen of my phone flashed again, the familiarity of that unknown number dragging me back into uncertainty. "You will regret ignoring our terms. We will find you." Everything within me snapped, the floodgates shattered by the weight of that message. And as I turned to him with panic etched across my features, I knew this was far from over. The chill of the night air wrapped around me, and the world felt like it had suddenly dimmed. My heart pounded so fiercely that it drowned out the sounds of laughter and life just steps away from where I stood, frozen. The message illuminated on my phone was like a dark cloud casting a shadow over the flickering streetlights. whispering threats that clung like cobwebs to the edges of my thoughts. It took all I had to keep from crumbling into despair, but the conversation with him felt like a lifeline of fragility I was terrified to breach. Did I have to go back? I murmured, my breath hitching as the enormity of everything threatened to consume me whole. Panic settled deeper into my chest as I turned. Stepping out from the cool reassurance of the wall, I had leaned against and back toward the warmth of that restaurant, and nearly collided with him. He reached for me, concern flaring in his eyes. In that moment, the world shrank down to just us, standing at the crossroads of connection and my monstrous fears. "What's wrong?" he asked softly, his voice a reassuring balm against my turmoil. I opened my mouth, but the words were stuck behind the dam of terror. How could I lay my burdens at his feet? Instead, I clutched the phone in my hand as if it were a lifeline, its screen glowing with the weight of an impending storm. I received a message. I managed, just above a whisper. It's from someone who won't let me go. They're watching me." The flicker of fear crossed his expression, but it was quickly replaced with determination. "Then let's figure this out together. You don't have to bear this alone." But I was not ready to lean in. I was still shackled by years of being alone, the weight of self-reliance anchoring me down. "You don't know what you're saying," I protested, stepping back. "This is dangerous. You don't have to put yourself in the middle of it." His hands dropped to his sides, and I could see the hurt flash across his face, something raw and vulnerable clashing with the grit of resolve. "You're not a burden to me," he insisted. "You're not the weight of your problems. You're so much more than that. Don't you see?" I shook my head, denying and clinging to the walls I had built for so long. The fears rolled in, relentless in their pursuit. "You don't know what it's like. The threats, the fear of losing my son. You're just a guy." "No," I cut in, my voice trembling. "You're so much more than just a guy, and I can't let you be dragged down by my mess." He stepped closer, his presence so solid that the chill around us seemed to retreat, but the storm inside me brewed fiercely. "What if I choose to be involved? You don't have to face this alone. You're not weak for asking for help. You deserve someone by your side, especially when things get dark." And in that moment, I felt a flicker of hope and crippling terror intertwine within me. The thought of sharing my burdens made the knot in my throat tighten even further. Humans aren't built to weather storms alone. Yet every instinct screamed that letting him in meant exposing him to my chaos. He noticed the internal battle wiggle its way into the lines of my face and pressed on gently. "I'm not asking you to share everything at once. Just let me help you in whatever small way I can. Let me try." How strange it was to feel caught in the intersection of need and fear. The whispers of my past clawed at me, amplifying the voices of doubt and self-reproach. I hesitated, but deep down, a part of me yearned for connection, for community, for love. My heart ached to trust him, but the scars from my past whispered that no one ever stayed, that the fear would always drown out the light that I want to. I confessed finally, almost a silent plea. "But I don't know how." His eyes softened. A flicker of understanding passed between us. This was new territory, fragile ground we stood on, and as if sensing the weight of the moment, he reached out, tentatively placing a hand on my back. Just that small gesture felt like a lifeline, and somehow, it dislodged the dam inside me. I could feel the weight of my past creeping closer, and the scars stung anew. But then, the moment shattered as my phone buzzed again, a reminder of reality that felt impossibly heavy and cold. I glanced at it, dread crashing over me like waves. "Stay with me," he urged as the silence lingered. "I can't. I have to know who this is, who's threatening my family," I said, my heart racing in panic. "Don't do this alone, please." As I stared into his earnest gaze, a sliver of warmth seeped through the cracks of my guarded heart. But I felt the weight of uncertainty drag me away again. "Give me time," was all I could manage before rushing to my phone, fingers trembling as I pressed into the app that would reveal my fate. But when I saw the unknown number again, a sharp gasp escaped my lips. "Who is it?" he asked, stepping closer, anxiety etched into his tone. I could barely process the name that flashed on the screen, one I never expected associated with this nightmare. It was a name I'd hoped was part of my past, relegated to shadows that felt lifetimes away. The kind-hearted stranger before me seemed worlds apart from the chaos of my broken life. Yet suddenly, they were intertwined in ways I had never foreseen as I turned toward him, the implications of my trembling words barely skimming the surface of my shock. It's someone I thought I had gotten away from. And at that moment, the fragile connection we had built began to unravel as the reality of the past crashed down. My heart knew the truth before I could voice it, echoing in the very marrow of my being. This was only the beginning of the secrets yet to unfold. The cafe buzzed around me, the smell of fresh coffee mingling with sweet pastries. But all I could focus on was the jagged edge of fear that sliced through the remnants of the moment we had just shared. His eyes remained locked onto mine, searching for something in answer. Perhaps a sign that this wasn't as insurmountable as it felt. But all I had was a churning maelstrom of regret and disbelief. "It's him, isn't it?" The tremor in his voice cut through the haze of confusion, forcing me to confront the reality that had loomed quietly, waiting for the right moment to strike. I took a step backward, a cold wall closing around my heart. He shouldn't have found me. I don't even know how he managed to get this number. Who is he? The question was simple, but there was a weight behind it that made my throat tighten. How could I explain the horrors of my past, the fears that had shaped every decision I had made? I wanted to keep him safe, to shield him from that part of me like it was a deadly disease, so I fell silent, drowning in the memories that threatened to resurface. The silhouette of my past loomed larger, taking shape in the form of haunting moments I'd tried to bury. But it was that familiar voice inside me, the one that had echoed through my darkest days, that urged me to speak, albeit shakily. He's someone I thought I'd left behind, someone not just intent on harm, but on control. He knows my weaknesses, knows that I would do anything to protect my son. A flicker of anger crossed his face. This isn't right. You shouldn't have to live in fear that I had spent so long wrapped up in my solitude, battling demons alone so no one else felt the fallout of my mistakes. I can't let anyone else get hurt because of me. This is my fault. His frustration morphed into something tender yet powerful, like an anchor in stormy seas. You didn't create this. The choices he made are not your responsibility. Let me help you put a barrier between you and him. The depths of his concern pulled at my resolve, a fleeting heartbeat of hope igniting within the rubble of my fears. You don't realize what you're asking for. This isn't a casual trip to the grocery store, it's about survival. The cafe's warmth faded as I glanced back at my phone, the eerie glow now a constant reminder of the threat that loomed, hanging over me like a storm cloud. Just one call, he urged gently but firmly. We can't move forward without knowing where we stand. You have to call the police or at least someone who can help. Too many memories crashed over me at once, those times when I had tried to ask for help, the misunderstandings, the judgment, the dismissal. The bitter taste of hopelessness was all too familiar. I've always been alone. Not anymore. Let me walk with you through this, he insisted, his sincerity sparking something inside me that I had thought dulled forever. But the contrast to my own world felt like an insurmountable chasm. Just then, the cafe door blew open with a gust, a chill swirling around us that felt far too reflective of where I stood emotionally. In that brief moment, a soft melody drifted in, a love song playing in the background that gnawed at the small piece of hope emerging from my core. What if I started? My voice trembling as I glanced toward him. What if I can't let you in? What if I keep pushing you away because I can't bear to see you hurt? Then he'll keep trying to find a way, he replied, taking my hand into his, a fortress against the rawness of my transparency. Even if it takes every ounce of strength I have. You deserve this, and so does your son. His grip was soothing, grounding me in the face of rising turmoil. How astonishing was it that someone so good could stand beside me, unafraid of the shadows I carried. Yet with each second that passed, dread began to set in as thoughts of my son consumed me. I can't risk him being pulled back into this, I confessed, my voice barely above a whisper. Then we need to act now, he articulated, his eyes holding mine with fierce intensity. The mutual understanding we had found began to ripple into the possibility of something greater, yet reason clawed at me with ferocity. Call someone. Please, for your son's sake. Stealing my resolve, I took a deep breath and reached for my phone. The number for the police burned in my mind, a painful reminder of a vulnerability I had long shunned. But as I readied my fingers to dial, the familiar chime of my phone broke through the quiet, heart-stopping urgency of the moment. A new message flashed across the screen, and a chill flickered down my spine like ice cascading down a steep cliff. My heart raced. I hesitated, the playful pings of sunlight from a dying day battling against the shadows of my rising dread. "What is it?" he asked, his grip tightening but his voice somehow a mix of concern and encouragement. I diverted my gaze from him to my phone and back. "I don't know if I'm ready for this." "Please," he urged gently, wings of concern brushing his words. "You can do this. No matter what it says, I'm right here." With shaking hands, I swiped the notification, bracing for the worst. The words etched across the screen filled me with dread, twisting the pit of my stomach and playing tricks on my perception of reality. "Don't you dare make a move without me. I'm closer than you think." The implications of that simple sentence roared through my veins, a chilling reminder that the battle I fought was far from over. My heart dropped as I looked into his eyes, fear and fury dancing behind my gaze. I didn't just lose my freedom, I might be putting everything at risk by wanting you in my life. As the weight of my confession settled in the air like a shroud, his expression hardened, a flicker of anger igniting the determination within him. The cafe around us faded, leaving just the two of us standing at the precipice of an unknown future, facing down the horrors of the past. And that moment of connection morphed into an uncharted territory of fragility, hope, and a looming confrontation that carried the promise of everything I feared but desperately craved. Love forged in the flames of adversity. The cafe doors swung shut, blocking the world outside with their solid thud. Yet I felt more exposed than ever. The walls now enclosed us in a fragile bubble, a sanctuary woven from the threads of kindness he offered and the mistrust I harbored. My heart thumped loudly in my chest as the message on my phone pulsed in my mind, a grim reminder that safety was a distant, wavering illusion. "I don't understand," I whispered, my mind racing. "How could he know where I am?" "Maybe he doesn't," he replied, his voice steady, grounding me. "Maybe it's just a taunt. What matters is how we respond." Respond. The word was a gnarled vine of possibility and dread. How could I respond to a ghost from my past when I was still grappling with the chain's head wrapped around me? My fingers trembled as I tucked my phone away, wanting more than anything to return to the moment we had shared before the darkness crept back in. I wanted to lose myself in the warmth of his presence, to believe I could balance my fears with the tenderness he radiated. But fear, like an old friend, lingered too close, filling the air with its acrid scent. He stepped closer, the distance between us reducing as if to shield me from the tempest outside. "What's your next move?" he inquired, his eyes searching mine for an inkling of resolve. The unyielding challenge in his gaze ignited something inside me. Would I choose fight or flight? "I need to protect my son," I murmured, the thought of Parker sending a rush of warmth into my chest, a reminder of the love that anchored my purpose in this chaotic world. But could I afford to reach for hope when every step felt like pulling weeds in an unruly garden? "Then let's take the first step together," he encouraged, undeterred. "Well, contact someone. Find ways to keep you both safe." His unwavering support was like a lighthouse in a storm, intimidating yet encouraging. It ripped at the very core of my guarded heart as I felt old insecurities rise to the surface. What if the walls I had built around us crumbled beneath the strain of the past? As if sensing my hesitation, he squeezed my hand. "You're stronger than you think. But you don't have to do this alone. I'm right here." In that moment, I wished fervently that I could let go of my apprehension, leap from the edge of uncertainty into a swelling sea of warmth and love. But what if my past puts you in danger too? What if that man finds you? "I won't let him." His voice was resolute. "But you need to let me in. Trust me." Trust, the very foundation upon which every relationship stands. But how could I trust when betrayal was an old companion? The claws of anxiety sank deeper into my chest, squeezing until I could hardly breathe. Before I could reply, My phone buzzed again this time, a dismal reminder that I was never truly safe. I just wanted to see you one last time. You won't forget me, will you? The playful mockery dripped from each word, sending shivers down my spine. His brow furrowed, concern etching itself into his features as he read the message over my shoulder. This is unreal, he murmured, slipping his arm protectively around me. I promise we will figure this out together. You don't know what I'm capable of. I glanced up at him, the light illuminating the determination carved into his features. There was something raw and beautiful in the way he breathed hope into my weary heart. What if I'm not strong enough? Then he'll carry you. His words lingered, threading through the room. We can reach out to someone who knows how to deal with these situations. This isn't just about you anymore. It's about your son. Parker's face swam to the forefront of my mind, the way his laughter filled the air and the bubble of warmth his presence created. I'll do whatever I need to keep him safe, I confessed at last, feeling the resolve I had been seeking anchor itself stronger than before. The connection between us shifted, crackling with unspoken promise. With conviction swelling in my chest, I took my phone in hand, feeling more empowered than the day's earlier shadows afforded. Just as I began to type, hoping to reach out for help, he suddenly pulled me close, catching me off guard. Promise me you won't hold back, he whispered, his warm breath sending sparks of electricity through the air. That I promise, I replied, the words bursting from my lips like a soft vow and appeal to the fragile hope we were beginning to weave amidst the terror. But before I could finish typing that fateful message, the cafe door flew open with a hurried gust. A figure stepped in, a familiar face painted in shadows and revelations, my heart plummeting in astonishment. Hello there, he called, a playfulness in his tone that sent an icy hand wrapping around my throat. Miss me? The terrifying recognition painted itself across the walls, and my world tilted on its axis once more. The confrontation hovered inches from reality, the air growing thick with unspoken tensions and breathless anticipation. I had fought so hard to keep my past at bay, yet it seemed like that past had just knocked loudly, demanding to be let inside. The bright cafe lights flickered over his familiar face, casting shadows that seemed to dance in mockery of my frozen fear. A mirage of the past had come alive, his presence saturating the air with a venomous nostalgia I thought I'd buried deep. Ethan, I breathed, my voice raw with disbelief. The name had once rolled off my tongue with affection. Now it felt like a curse. An image of our son, Parker, flickered in my mind, his innocent laughter juxtaposed against the chilling tone of the man standing before me. Did you really think you could escape my reach? His grin was disarming yet twisted, a blend of pleasure in disruption mixed with perverse kindness. The way he scrutinized me made my skin crawl. I wanted nothing more than to run, to protect Parker from this encroaching storm. Get away from us, I managed, forcing the words through clenched teeth as I instinctively stepped closer to the man beside me, still holding my hand. His grip tightened, a silent pact made in that fleeting connection. Ah, but it's not just you this time, is it? Ethan's gaze shifted to my companion, curiosity swirling like a maelstrom in his eyes. Who's your knight in shining armor? A temporary distraction? Or are you planning a happily ever after? My heart raced, straining against the walls of fear and anger that pressed in on all sides. We don't owe you anything, I shot back, my voice steadier than I felt. Leave us alone. You're not a part of our lives anymore. He chuckled darkly, a sound that reverberated through the bitter silence. You think I care what you want? You'll always belong to me. That bond can't be severed by mere distance. He took a step forward, and the air grew heavier, pregnant with unwelcomed memories. But good for you, it seems you've found someone to help you carry your burdens. How noble. Don't you dare talk to her like that, my companion interrupted, stepping between us defiantly, embodying strength I marveled at. Ah, the gallant protector. Adorable. Ethan spat as he waved a dismissive hand, his eyes narrowing as he focused back on me. When will you learn? You can't hide from me. I will always find you. The walls of the cafe seemed to close in, reminding me of the tiny spaces I had occupied away from the menace that haunted my past. but all that security I had built starting to tumble down in the face of his menace. I clenched my fists, the pulse of urgency and panic tightening around my chest, suffocating me. My old insecurities clawed back. It felt like I was spiraling into a chasm. Once again a girl trapped by love gone wrong. He even tried to articulate my worst fears, as if his words were spells meant to unravel any shred of courage I possessed. But suddenly, amidst the tempest brewing inside, I felt a flicker of resolve ignite within my chest, fueled by thoughts of Parkeroff, his laughter, his untainted joy. I couldn't let the shadow of a monster seep into his world. I am done playing your games. Ethan, I said, my voice shaking but stronger than before. You don't own me, and you never will again. Ethan's expression shifted. Confusion splashed across his features before it morphed into rage. You'll regret this. His voice lowered, a venomous whisper that slithered around us like creeping fog. You don't want to see what I'm capable of when you make me angry. Let's go, now, my companion murmured, his tone low yet resolute, gently leading me backward, inching toward the exit as a protective wall between us and Ethan. Run if you want, Ethan called after us, his voice dancing wildly in the air. But you can't escape. I will always be watching. The darkness swirled around his words, making them linger as we raced toward the brightness outside, each step carrying the weight of uncertainty and dread. Once outside, the fresh air hit my face like a splash of cold water, yet the reality of our plight felt inescapable, clawing at my mind. My heart hammered against the cage of ribs as we stumbled into the crowd, searching for visibility and safety. Let's get somewhere safe, he urged, scanning our surroundings with a sharp intensity that suggested he recognized the danger looming. I nodded, knowing my face was pale and fear-stricken, but the pulse of despair was amplified now. Matching the pounding of my heart, we hurried through the bustling streets, weaving past oblivious faces that carried no knowledge of my turmoil. It felt surreal, how easily life continued around us while I struggled with the weight of my past, seeking to reclaim its hold. My mind raced with what might happen next as we ducked into a small alley. Are you okay? He asked, his voice steady yet laced with concern. I nodded, barely finding my breath, forcing myself not to crumple under the gravity of the confrontation. It just feels like the shadows will swallow me whole. I confessed, my voice barely a whisper, haunted by Ethan's dark promise. His expression softened, and he cupped my cheeks, forcing me to meet his gaze. You're not alone in this. Well, face it together, no matter what it takes. You've got to believe that. As he spoke, a flicker of warmth rumbled through my chest, the barriers I had erected beginning to crack just slightly. I want to trust you, I managed, feeling the steam of emotions bubbling just beneath the surface, ready to erupt. But before words could form a reality, the shrill of my phone interrupted, cutting through the moment of fragile hope. I lifted it slowly, dread pooling in my stomach. The message glowed on the screen in harsh contrast to the promise of light. Don't think this is over. I've always known where to find you. It's just a matter of time. My heart plummeted, the weight of the message bearing down like a heavy anchor. Looking up, I saw the tension in my companion's jaw tighten, a prophecy carved in worry etching itself across the space between us. The flicker of hope that had ignited withered under a new layer of fear, and I knew with terrifying certainty that this was only the beginning. I stumbled back against the cold brick wall of the alley, clutching my phone like it was a lifeline gone awry. The words of the message echoed in my mind, spiraling around me like a storm, mocking the warmth that had flickered just moments before. Who is it? My companion asked, tightening his grip on my arm as if anchoring me to the present. The concern in his voice was palpable, but it only heightened the sense of despair blooming in my chest. It's Ethan, I whispered, trying to compose myself, to draw up the remnants of bravery that guided me through those bitter years away from him. He knows where I am. He always has. The color drained from his face, his mind racing as he processed the implications. We need to get out of here, he said urgently, looking into the alley and weighing our options. This is too close. We can't stay here. Not with him knowing. A rush of panic surged through me, my heart feeling like it might burst under the strain of fear. I had left everything behind to shield Parker from the darkness Ethan had once enveloped us in. And yet here it was again, creeping in through the cracks of my fragile sanctuary. But what if he's watching? What if he finds us? Hey, he said gently, turning my face toward him. Look at me. We can't let him control our lives. You're stronger than he ever gave you credit for. And I'm not gonna let him tear you down. Together, we'll figure this out. I wanted to believe him. His words sparked flickers of resolve. Yet the palpable fear threatened to extinguish every emerging flame. What if I let you down? What if I can't protect Parker? A shadow flickered across his face, and for a brief moment, uncertainty flickered in his eyes. But that was quickly replaced by a determination that ignited a new fervor within me. Then you let me down, he said softly, brushing his thumb along my cheek. But we can't worry about what-ifs right now. We need to focus on getting you both to safety. Let's move. As we emerged from the narrow confines of the alley and into the thrum of the city, each footstep felt heavy, echoing my inner turbulence. The lights of the street throbbed with life, yet they felt distant, like a world I was being forcibly pulled away from. I was surrounded by people, yet I felt utterly isolated, trapped in a glass case of emotions: fear, anxiety, the whisper of looming dread. We moved swiftly among the sidewalk crowds, my heart thumping in tandem with the rhythm of uncertainty. Every face I glimpsed felt alien, their laughter and conversations a mocking reminder of the simple lives they led, unaware of the darkness that plagued me. I longed to reach for Parker, to draw him close, to assure myself that he was still blissfully unaware of the tempest brewing. As if sensing my turmoil, my companion leaned closer, brushing his shoulder against mine. Where do you want to go? He asked, his voice cutting through my haze, making me cling to the reality of his presence. I hesitated, my mind racing with possibilities. There's a park nearby. It's quiet usually at this time. All right, let's head there. He kept his gaze scanning our surroundings, vigilant, protective. I was grateful for his presence, but dread coiled in my gut as I imagined Parker and what would happen if he saw Ethan lurking around. When we finally reached the park, the trees stood tall and lush, a canopy of stillness cloaking us from the chaos of the streets. The serenity, however, felt surreal against the turmoil that churned within me. I spotted a bench nestled under an old oak tree, the same spot Parker and I had come to share moments of joy and laughter. We sat in silence, the tension between us thick. I couldn't shake the unease that settled over me, like fog rolling in after sunset. I pulled out my phone, eyes scanning repeatedly for any signs of further messages. Yet it remained ominously silent. I'm scared, I finally admitted, the weight of the words tumbling from my lips, a confession I had held back for far too long. I thought I could escape him. I never expected to be running from the ghost of my past when I rebuilt my life. Why can't he just leave us alone? His eyes softened, a look of understanding settling in as he took my hands in his. Because he's a coward, and cowards prey on fear, he replied firmly. But you refuse to be that prey anymore, right? You are not that girl who believed she was worth less than what he claimed. The truth in his words brushed against the inner walls I had built, compelling me to wrestle with my own demons. My heartbeat matched the rhythm of my thoughts, a tempest of uncertainty and vulnerability. If he's really watching, what happens next? I asked with trepidation heavy in my gut. Before he could respond, the bustling of the park faded into a hush, and a figure emerged from the corner of my eye, a silhouette just entering the playground area, hands tucked into pockets, eyes scanning the surroundings with an unsettling familiarity. There stood Ethan, a predatory gaze sweeping over the scene before him, alive with the promise of chaos. Bile rose in my throat, the breath caught in my chest as I realized the reality I had dreadfully underestimated. This was not the end of his pursuit. It was merely the beginning, as shadows from the past stretched forth into the light, weaving the threads of fear through the brightest moments I had clung to. Stay close, I murmured to my companion, panic threading through my voice, trembling with the weight of uncertainty. My heart raced faster as the realization hit me: battle against the specter of my past was far from over, and it was time to confront the monster that had woven himself back into my life. Each step I took felt heavier than the last, the air thick with the weight of a realization I had dreaded but couldn't escape. Ethan was not just a remnant of my past, he was a threat. The familiar, poised assurance that I had felt only moments ago transformed into a primal instinct to protect. The instinct to shield Parker echoed in the very essence of my being, coursing through my veins like a wildfire. I glanced at my companion, his eyes narrowing as he too processed the scene unfolding before us. "Stick by me?" he whispered, his voice a steady anchor against the chaos swirling inside. I nodded, even though doubt began to string itself tightly around my heart. This wasn't a simple confrontation. It was a showdown with the ghosts of my decisions, the trials of every moment I thought I could escape. Ethan leaned casually against a wooden post at the playground's edge, his presence both calm and chaotic. I could see him scanning the area, a predator poised to strike. Every instinct in me screamed to flee while I still could. But there was a greater urgency bubbling beneath the surface one that pushed me to confront my fears instead of running from them. This was my life and my son's, and I was done cowering in shadows. "What do we do?" my companion asked, his voice barely a whisper, the fear in his eyes mirroring my internal storm. "We stand firm." My voice surprised even me, vibrating with a fragile but fierce resolve. In this moment I needed to reclaim my narrative, not just for myself but for Parker. And in this strange, twisted theory of how love and safety intertwine, I knew that our fight wasn't just for survival. It was to show my son that facing fears head-on was what bravery really looked like. As we approached the playground, I squared my shoulders, focusing on every detail, the sound of laughter and joy from the other children, the chirping of birds fluttering around, and the comforting sight of greenery around me. This place once held our laughter and joy, and today, it would also witness where I stood up for myself and my son. Ethan's gaze locked onto mine, a dangerous smirk curling his lips. "Look who we have here. The epitome of bravery," he called out, his voice dripping with mockery that sent chills down my spine. But I was ready. I pressed forward, unwavering, my companion right beside me. "Your games are over, Ethan," I said, each word laced with steely conviction. "I won't let you intimidate me any longer. I have someone here who supports me and am not afraid of you anymore." My heart hammered in my chest as I felt the barrier of fear begin to crack. Rage flickered in Ethan's eyes. She had underestimated the strength I had nurtured. "Is that so?" he shot back, condescension rolling off him. "You really think he can keep you safe?" "He doesn't have to," I replied, my voice booming with strength I hadn't known I possessed. "I can keep myself safe. I can keep my son safe. And you? You're only as powerful as the fear you create. I'm done letting you play puppet master in my life." His laughter echoed, a sinister sound that rattled the air. "You think yelling will make a difference? You think you've escaped me? I will always find you." The truth hung in the air, taunting me. For a brief moment, the weight of his words threatened to crush my newfound strength, but I felt my companion squeeze my hand, a warm reassurance that stitched together the frayed threads of my confidence. I was not alone in this battle. No, the word came out sharper than I intended, cutting through the tension. "You suspect that I am frightened, but there's more to me now than that scared girl you knew. I'm a mother, and I will fight for my child. You need to understand that this time I won't tolerate your games." Ethan's demeanor shifted, a flicker of something darker crossing his face. "This is just the beginning," he warned, a glint in his eye sending a warning chill through me. "What goes around comes around. You think you've won just because you have a new plaything?" It was a threat dressed in bravado, and I felt an electric charge dance on my skin, igniting my resolve. Instead of cowering, I held my ground. "You may think you have power, but power lies in choice, and I choose never to let you control my life again." I felt an overwhelming sense of liberation wash over me. Fear had once wrapped me in chains, but now I was cutting ties. The clarity of my words hung in the air, and the sun shone brightly overhead as if the universe itself was in agreement with my declaration of strength. Ethan's face contorted in anger, and just as I feared, he took a step closer. "You will regret every word," he hissed. The threat was palpable, resonating threats that clawed at my insides, urging me to back down, to consider retreat. But this time I wouldn't back down. I am done running, I stated firmly, feeling the strength of my companion beside me. Whatever you think you can do to me, I won't be scared anymore. You have nothing left to hold over me. And then, in that pivotal moment of confrontation, I realized I had finally found my footing, settling into an anchoring truth. Strength resided not just in power but in speaking up, in exploring brave new decisions, and finding allies who stood by you in both light and darkness. Ethan's face morphed into a scowl, any semblance of calm slipping away like sand through fingers. This isn't over, he warned, his voice low and dangerous, eyes narrowing in ire. You'll rue the day you decided to challenge me. I guess we'll see about that. I held my ground where I stood, cherishing the warmth of my companion's hand still holding mine. The moment hung like a fragile crystal, shimmering with the promise of change. Ethan turned, as if recognizing the futility of stepping any closer, and with a final glance, he slipped away into the shadows of the park, leaving us to breathe once more. I exhaled heavily, each breath echoing like a silent victory over every lie he had woven into my life. Are you all right? My companion asked softly, his hands still entwined with mine, grounding me to reality. Yes, I whispered, though the tremors coursing through me spoke to the weight of what had just transpired. Stronger than I expected. His warm eyes held a belief that mirrored my growing conviction. You are stronger than you realize. They're just words, inhumane echoes of fear. The shadows of doubt lingered, glancing at the edges of my mind, but they no longer felt insurmountable. I had claimed a piece of myself back, to die a piece tied to being a mother who refused to give in to the past. As we stepped away from the remnants of that encounter, I caught sight of the sun dipping lower, casting vibrant hues across the horizon, a reminder that even the harshest days could still yield to the promise of a new dawn. And in that moment of clarity, the weight of my journey transformed into hope, lying gracefully upon hope's gentle hands. Parker, I thought, as I gripped my companion's hand a little tighter, the love I fought for would thrive because love is worth every battle. Each moment of fear, every confrontation, would always lead me back to the one thing that mattered, the promise of tomorrow, and I smiled wide, ready to embrace whatever came next. Let's go home, I said, and together we walked towards that horizon, filled with the promise of a future carved from courage and love, a place where shadows would never hold dominion again. Eventually, as we reached the edge of the park, I turned to look back one last to me, a silent farewell to the shadow of fear that had attempted to claim me. But as I observed the fading sunlight illuminating the path ahead, I turned forward firmly, heart swelling with an unwavering belief and the conviction that I was ready to face all that lay before us. Together, I whispered, embedding the word deep into the chronicles of my heart, where love would always persist, forging ahead into the vastness of a hopeful tomorrow, and there lay my true victory.